How's it going, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? How's it been since my last video? Who wants to hear about the largest city and state capital of the Sooner State, Oklahoma City, in, of course, Oklahoma? If you were paying attention earlier, but I don't blame you. A lot of people my generation and younger have terrible attention spans. Anyways, I visited Oklahoma City last year, and I was there for a short period of time. I was mainly there for a career fair, so I wasn't really there for a vacation, and unfortunately the career fair got postponed, which was a bummer. I was hoping to land a job and hopefully move to and live in Oklahoma City rather than in my home city and state. However, I did get some time to explore the city, and honestly, I was amazed at what the city had to offer. The rich history, culture, the different districts, the museums, and the other ways they teach about the history and culture in the city, which I'll also talk about, the historic Route 66, and so much more. I especially loved how the city was laid out. It was just an incredible experience overall. And I'm surprised this city often goes overlooked, despite the fact, at least what I've been told, that a lot of tourists come from Europe. I'm not joking. A lot of tourists fly in all the way from Europe because of the historic Route 66. I feel like Oklahoma City often gets overlooked by people who aren't from Europe or from the Southwest. Overlooked not only by tourists, but also by residents moving in. Now, I have heard that a lot of people have been moving to Oklahoma City, and I think the Sooner State as a whole is gaining residents. You might be one of those people too who are moving to Oklahoma City or the state of Oklahoma as a result. Overall, I thought Oklahoma City was a great city. I actually felt more of a belonging there than I did here in Portland, in Seattle, or any place that I've been to so far. And if you're thinking of moving to Oklahoma City, well, that's great. However, it may not be for everyone, and it definitely isn't for everyone. So before you move there, kick back, relax, and listen to my 5 reasons not to and 5 reasons to move to the largest and capital city of the Sooner State. Number 5, don't. It's a purple city in a red state. Now, I want to point out that I do not like to dive deep into politics for the cities or states I talk about. For me personally, pretty much any blue or red state can work out for me. Purple states too, especially purple states. Of course, there are some states I will not move to or don't want to move to, regardless of political affiliation. However, this is not something that I really want to play deep into deciding if I want to live there or if I can move there or not. Whether or not I can move there depends on if I can find a job there, if I can afford to live there, if I can raise a family there, if I choose to have a family, taking into consideration like schools, safety, etc., as well as if I find that state to be the right state for me, the quality of life. And that's what I think that you should take into consideration too before moving to another state. However, if you are more left-leaning or more moderate or apolitical, well, Oklahoma City, like I said, is a purple city. It would be able to work out for you. However, since it's a red state, it can make some complications for you. They are very gun-friendly. They've had open carry in public places since 2012. A lot of gun owners, gun ranges, stand-your-ground laws that expanded in 2022. There are a lot of businesses and locations nonetheless in OKC that say no weapons allowed, no guns allowed. So just wanted to point that out, but they are very gun friendly. As well as the fact that they're very religious. They're in the Bible Belt. They were ranked among the highest in church attendance back in 2015, 70% defined as Christians, and they aren't as LGBTQ friendly. I heard in recent years they passed laws in Oklahoma, which of course OKC is going to be affected by, limiting LGBTQ rights. I don't know exactly those laws, however, I did hear about them. OKC does have pride parades, though if you're part of the LGBTQ community, living in the state could pose some issues or some difficulties. So I wanted to point that out. Also, it's legal now to run over protesters in Oklahoma. It's been like that for a few years. If the protesters get off the path that was designated them to be able to protest at, and if they block traffic, as well as if they pose threats to any drivers who are driving. I just wanted to point that out, though. Don't let the political landscape necessarily take control of like whether you decide to move there or not. I just wanted to point that out. Also, I don't want to demean any people who are religious, like me, myself being a Christian too. And I want to point out this nice place, the Blessed Stanley Rother Shrine. It's kind of like Notre Dame here in OKC. It's a very beautiful cathedral. They have an incredible museum, nice gift shop, and even a nice small hill, kind of reminding me of the grotto here in Portland, Oregon, just across from the church where you could have a good view of the cathedral itself, possibly OKC too, if the weather permits. Of course, I went on a foggy day, so. Number five, yes. They have an excellent food scene in the city, and it comes from their diversity. Now, this is from personal experience. Before I get into personal experience about cuisine, I want to talk a little bit about diversity. Oklahoma City, in my opinion, is actually quite diverse. I thought it was more diverse here than here in Portland. There are people from different backgrounds, and it does have a lot of Native American history and culture here. And that's especially helpful for the food scene here. I had a variety of different foods while I was in Oklahoma City. Unfortunately, I couldn't have a lot of them or all of them, but I had a variety, a huge variety, including cuisine I would never find here in Portland. One thing I really wanted to try there that I unfortunately didn't get to try are calf fries, or also known as Rocky Mountain oysters. Now, I know what they are. I know what you're thinking. Semvel, why would you want to try this? Okay, I like trying new cuisines. I like trying unusual cuisines too, you know? There are unusual cuisines from around the world, some of which might sound disgusting. You have to try them nonetheless. And unfortunately, I didn't get to try the German restaurant there either. However, they have a variety of different cuisines that I enjoyed, like the Luther Burger. This is a hamburger made with donuts for buns. Oklahoma City isn't the only place that has this, but I couldn't find one here in Portland. They have New Orleans cuisine. They had a nice Italian cuisine, Laotian cuisine. I've never had Laotian cuisine before in my entire life. I was so excited, so anticipated to try this when I found out that there was a Laotian restaurant in OKC. I also went to a ramen restaurant. It's not just the incredible ramen they had there. In the men's restroom of that ramen restaurant, I kid you not, they literally had the men's care products, a shaving razor, cream, not even joking, even mouthwash there. I think they even had spray deodorant or something like that. They actually provided men's personal care products in the men's restroom at that ramen restaurant. On top of that, there were a lot of different cuisines that they had throughout the city that I didn't get to try, such as Native American cuisine. They had a Native American restaurant at the First Americans Museum. They also had some nice steaks and nice hamburgers too. They had a variety of different cuisines and a place from their diversity. They also had like an international district or like an Asian district essentially in the city, much like Chinatown, but more exclusively, more openly, shall I say, for different backgrounds. So yeah, if you're somebody who wants to live in a more diverse community, and if you especially love diverse food scenes and cultures, I highly recommend OKC. Number four, don't. Public transportation is improving, yet it's still a very car-dependent city and state as a whole. All right, like the last century, I put this one close to the bottom, this time because I feel guilty as a result. The reasoning behind it is because I rode public transportation, specifically the streetcar, and I did it once. The one and only time I rode the streetcar, they let me get on for free, was taking too long at the kiosk for the ticket. I didn't have to pay the $1 or $3 fare. They let me ride for free from one place to a few blocks away. So yeah, I feel guilty making this a negative. And I don't mean to offend the Oklahoma City public transportation as a whole. I think it's great overall. I think it's pretty good, and I do believe the media when they say that it's improving. I never took the bus or any other form of transit. I mostly relied on driving throughout the city and walking there, which I'll talk about. This is primarily a car-dependent city. In fact, the state as a whole is very car-dependent. Oklahoma City and Oklahoma, the state as a whole, doesn't rank very well when it comes to public transportation. So yeah, essentially, it's very car dependent. You will need a car unless you live in downtown OKC and your workplace, groceries, all of your necessities are within walking distance or within the streetcar route. Or if you very rarely, if ever, go outside the city, if you don't live outside the city, you will need a car to get by in the city, possibly the state as a whole. Driving throughout the city, I rented a car. I actually rented it well in advance when I booked the trip, since I knew Oklahoma didn't rank very well with public transportation. Renting a car is necessary nonetheless. That's something you'll have to keep in mind, especially if you, like, let's say you have a life where you live in the suburbs, you work in downtown, you have to drop your kids off at school, you have to pick your kids up at school, get groceries, drop your kids off at daycare. If you live that kind of life, you will need to get a car when you arrive in the city, possibly before you even come to the city. Number four, yes, getting around the city. This is actually a piece of cake, and it helps make up for the last con I mentioned about public transportation not being very good. Now, I will add that, like I said before, you may be able to get around downtown very well with public transit, although it's very limited and you can't reach the suburbs with public transit. As mentioned before, it is a very car-dependent city, and the city has been very well built, very well laid out for that feature. The roads felt like they were wide enough. I rented a car when I was there, and I was able to drive very smoothly around the city of OKC, and even right outside of OKC, like in the countryside, in more of the farmland, the flat plains. On top of that, walking around the city was also just as walkable as Portland. The driving, I especially want to point out that Oklahoma City has done a better job of making the city, laying out the roads so that it's a lot better to drive in OKC when compared to here in Portland, Oregon, or in other places like Seattle, Washington. Driving around Oklahoma City was just pretty smooth for me, and especially in the suburbs. In fact, in the suburban places close to OKC, another major advantage, like I said previously with OKC, they made the roads wide enough. Like in this neighborhood right here, where they have all the nice houses, the roads were actually wide enough, especially compared to some of the suburbs in the downtown Portland metropolitan area. Like, I mean, in the suburb I lived in Beaverton, or even where I live now, also in Beaverton, the roads are pretty wide. But when it came to the suburbs in Portland, the ones that were close to the city itself, the roads were just so thin, so small. I often had to drive very slowly because the cars that are parked on the curb, they basically squeezed me out. There couldn't be any two-way traffic, even if the roads were made for two-way traffic. Not the case in OKC. This neighborhood had it perfect when it came to being able to drive around smoothly in OKC. Number 3, don't. The Legends Tower project, as well as additional development. For those of you who have never heard, the Legends Tower is a project in upcoming development in Oklahoma City that will feature a pretty big plaza, and among that plaza, among those hotels, will be a mega tall skyscraper called the Legends Tower. When it will be completed, it will be the tallest building, I kid you not, the tallest building in the United States. Possibly North America. It's seen to surpass the One World Trade Center in New York City and the Willis Tower in Chicago, as well as possibly the CN Tower in Toronto. Now, I don't know about you, I am a tall buildings enthusiast. Architecture has been interesting for a long time now. However, I'm against this project because I think it's pointless, and I don't think it'll make the city better. I think it'll do the opposite, actually. Why are they building the tallest building in the US and North America in Oklahoma City, of all places? I mean, OKC is a big city. It's not that big, though. It's not as big as Portland, Austin, or San Antonio. I personally believe it will ruin the city in terms of development. It will lead to excessive development. Now, they've developed the city quite a lot. I've seen the development they made, the area around the Paycom Center, the parks, how they redid some of the facades of the buildings, like this one here, for example. It used to look a lot different previously. And I like what they built so far. This is unnecessary though, and I feel like they're going to start to develop excessively, and I've seen some of that. For example, you see this building being demolished here? It's kind of sad. This is a movie studio, the Prairie Surf Studio here in OKC. It's literally being torn down so they could build a new arena for the OKC Thunder, like a second arena, essentially. I've seen that happen in my home city of Portland. I mean, I've seen the food cart block have all of their food carts evicted so they could build the Ritz-Carlton, which they did finish building, by the way. I liked the development they did in Portland until in the late 2010s, I started to realize it was starting to become more excessive. They've already broken ground on 2 of the 3 hotels for this project, and they will start the Legends Tower soon. It will be completed in about 4 years. If you like this project, then you're gonna love OKC. But for me personally, I think it'll drive OKC in the opposite direction once it's finished. Number 3, yes, they have a great economy. So before you call me out on this is from my personal experience, and it's also mixed when it came to the articles and reports that I've heard about Oklahoma City's economy. And I guess you could say the economy of Oklahoma as a whole. Most of the articles have been more leaning towards the positives rather than the negative. And I honestly can't say that I'm in disagreement. Oklahoma City has a good economy overall. A lot of employers are actually based in the energy sector. As a matter of fact, according to the Fortune 500, a lot of the companies on that list that are based in Oklahoma are in the energy sector, oil and natural gas primarily, with the biggest, from my understanding, being Devon Energy. Even though Devon Energy was recently acquired by a Texas-based energy company with plans to move the headquarters to Texas, they did announce that they would keep a huge presence, shall I say, in Oklahoma City. Yeah, if you go on the Fortune 500 website, look at the list, and sort out the list to companies based in Oklahoma, a lot of them will be in the energy sector. It doesn't just end there. As a matter of fact, Oklahoma City and Oklahoma as a whole has a diverse array of industries: energy, healthcare, aviation, aerospace, bioscience, and food services being some of the biggest. A lot of employers based in Oklahoma City include Hobby Lobby, Sonic Drive-In, Express Employment Professionals, Oklahoma State University, not to mention that Dell has a campus there, as well as Bank of Oklahoma, and so much more. I do believe I also saw a Boeing office or campus there too when I was there. Oklahoma City as a whole has a great economy, and the urban development also shows it. Although I criticize the excessive amount of development, how they develop the city is a sign, a symbol of a thriving, strong economy. Number 3, don't. The weather. The weather in Oklahoma City and the state as a whole can be temperamental. If you didn't already know, Oklahoma does get a lot of tornadoes. In fact, I think they get the most amount of tornadoes than any state in the union on a yearly basis, about 52 per year from what I've been told. In fact, one of the largest, if not the largest tornadoes to have ever occurred here in the United States happened in Moore, Oklahoma, about south of Oklahoma City. That tornado was very violent, killing 24 people and injuring 212 others. Now, personally, I have never experienced or even seen a tornado before. I live in Oregon, where there aren't really any tornadoes. We have a lot of mountains here, which prevents tornadoes from happening. Although mid-southern Oregon has experienced some tornadoes before. I think in 2010, 2011, there was a tornado here in southern Oregon. Nonetheless, this is something you definitely don't want to deal with. And it's not just the tornadoes. The summers there can get quite hot. I visited in September last year, and it was still quite hot during that time period. The winter can also be pretty brutal. There have been ice storms, the roads can get icy. They were hit with a snowstorm that did impact like the southwestern part of the United States, Oklahoma, New Mexico, I think Texas. And 5 years ago when Texas got hit with that deep freeze snowstorm, all the states neighboring Texas and the states neighboring those states, including Oklahoma, were hit by that snowstorm too. OKC was no exception. So yeah, if you're not favorable of crazy weathers, if you can't stand tornadoes, hot summers, or don't want to deal with freezing cold winters, you might want to think twice before moving to Oklahoma City. Number 2, yes, it's still a great place to raise a family. Yes, I said still, because despite the previous cons and the number one con I will mention, which may disincentivize you from moving to OKC if you plan to raise a family or have kids, OKC, based on my personal experience when I was there and based on the research from the videos I watched, is a great city to raise your family for those of you who have kids. They are high on activities. Sports are really popular among youth there, especially since we're home to an NBA team, the Thunder, the OSU Sooners college football team, minor league baseball team, and pretty soon a professional soccer team. They have a lot of great educational and recreational places to take your kids to. The museums include the Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, Science Museum, Fighters Museum, and the Railway Museum. They also have 2 zoos. Yes, 2 zoos, a safari zoo and the main downtown zoo, both of which I recommend you're taking your kids to. The safari zoo is a great place because you will get to hold, and your kids will get to hold, animals you thought you would never hold before. On top of that, you also get to feed some of the animals that you thought you would never feed there, including in some of the most creative ways possible. OKC also has a great amusement park to take your kids to, the Frontier City Water Park, Widewater, which is what you see here down the road from the First Americans Museum, a nice Ferris wheel, a great place to get a good view of the city and the state fair if you go around the same time as the state fair, which is what I did. Unfortunately, I didn't get to experience the state fair, though you and your kids, if you go there or move there, get to experience the state fair, which happens every year in September. And last but not least, in terms of activities, the parks. The parks in Oklahoma City, which you will definitely want to take your kids to, are well maintained. Not one park, whether it was a concrete business park, a small park behind an office or residential building, or even this huge, incredible Scissortail Park, which I'll talk about. I don't think I saw a single one that felt like it was neglected, much like the parks we have here in Portland, Oregon. Seriously, we have a lot of parks in Portland that I feel like have fallen into neglect. Back to Scissortail Park, you and your kids will love this place. It's a great place for a stroll and a great place to play sports. It is the largest park in OKC. Whether you're there to play soccer, stroll along the sidewalk with the baby in the stroller, or if your kids want to go on top of the hill and get a great view of the city, you and your kids will love Scissortail Park. Be sure to leave a lock at the Scissortail Bridge. In general, due to the activities, I think it's a great place to raise a family. In terms of other reasons, OKC is affordable. Buying a home and rent is actually actually lower than the national average. At least it's lower than here in Portland. While the median household income isn't that high, it is high in my opinion for a place affordable like this. It is a relatively safe place. I only saw just one homeless encampment and much less homeless people than here in Portland, Oregon. Although one homeless person was giving a state trooper a hard time on the first day I arrived, it is a relatively safe place, especially in the suburbs. And speaking of suburbs, every suburb has a playground and almost everyone has a splash pad for your kids to enjoy. Oklahoma City is just a great major city in my opinion to raise a family, and I highly recommend living here if you choose to raise a family. And number one, don't. The schools. The schools in Oklahoma City, at least the public schools, are definitely not the ones you would want to send your kids to. Schools aren't very good in general in Oklahoma. Now, it does vary by school district. You will have to do some research if you plan to raise a family and send them to schools here in Oklahoma City. I did hear that Edmond and Norman, two of the suburban cities in OKC, do have good schools. And on top of that, whether or not you're a fan of this kind of topic, there are school choice programs, so you do have more of an option from what I've heard to send your kids to more of a private school or a different type of school rather than a regular public school. But yeah, Oklahoma doesn't rank well when it comes to schools. Unfortunately, the funding for the schools is very limited and it's not very good. A teacher turnover rate is high for the 2023-2024 school years. They're struggling to maintain teachers, and school choice is highly valued. So if you're not a fan of this, well then that could be an issue if you wanted to send your kids to a public school. I personally am neutral on this, and I do believe that if you want to, you should be allowed to send your kids to a school that isn't a regular public school if you feel like it's best for them. Even though this entire reason does contradict my prior reason of how Oklahoma City is a great place to raise a family, this is one reason why you may not choose to live in Oklahoma City or the state as a whole. And the number one reason why you should move to Oklahoma City, it has great history, culture, and an overall scene. This is something that has heavily come from my experience when I was in Oklahoma City. And it's also embedded in the articles that I read about moving to Oklahoma City. It was just incredible. Went beyond my expectations. Just so you know, this is going to be like an overall summary of the reasons why you should move to Oklahoma City. I want to start off by talking about the history. It is well reflected in the museums, and the museums in Oklahoma City are some of the most unique, interesting museums I've ever seen, with my most favorite being a tie between the Oklahoma Memorial and Museum and the First Americans Museum. The Oklahoma Memorial Museum is a museum and memorial meant to honor the people we lost and to talk about, remember, and reveal the facts of the Oklahoma City building that was bombed, completely destroyed in 1995 in a terrorist attack by Timothy McVeigh and one of his colleagues. It's a sad place, however, you will want to visit this because it's actually a very well designed memorial and museum. I personally liked it more than the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York City. The other museum, the First Americans Museum, is a Native American museum that has revealed to me the history, culture, artwork, modern-day representation, and reflection of Indigenous Americans across the United States, and has done a good job doing so right down to the design. As a matter of fact, the architecture of the First Americans Museum was inspired by a traditional Indigenous house known as the Wichita Grass Lodge. This museum even has a mound as a part of it, which you can go on, even get certain tours of. Mounds were a very important part of Native American culture, and when I got the tour, they revealed a lot about mounds and their uses. You even get an amazing view of the city and the museum where you can view its stunning architecture. The museum also features a cafe that has indigenous cuisine. Oklahoma has a lot of history with and a huge presence of the indigenous population here in the United States, past and present. As a matter of fact, the name of the state, Oklahoma, means red people in one of the many languages used by the indigenous. Other museums I want to point out that I absolutely loved were the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, which also surprisingly includes the Oregon Trail, the Banjo Museum. Yes, banjos aren't just an incredible instrument, they're a work of art too. The Stanley Rother Museum at the Blessed Stanley Rother Shrine, the Museum of Osteology, a skeleton museum, a contemporary, more modern art museum, as well as the City Art Museum, which features glasswork of Dale Chihuly, and I was actually there during the Ansel Adams exhibit. I almost forgot to mention the Museum of Oklahoma. Very close to the state capital, this museum explains the whole history of Oklahoma. Well, a majority of it. And one more place that wasn't exactly a museum, but did demonstrate the history of Oklahoma City is the underground, which you see right here. An underground passage through Oklahoma City that looks almost like the back rooms. Remember I talked to you about inclement weather here in OKC and Oklahoma? Well, this might be able to help you combat that weather. The underground has a lot of images showing historic photos of Oklahoma City, as well as powerful quotes too from different people in Oklahoma City. Even the old bank building, which I believe is connected to the underground, has a lot of history that it shows too. All of the history that has been perfectly exemplified by the museums here has led to the culture of Oklahoma City. The culture amazed me. The artwork is incredible, not graffiti art, which you would see in a lot of other cities, but just murals and all this artwork, including those at the art museums too. People there are very nice and very friendly. They take a lot of interest in all of this stuff, and they'll take interest definitely in what you'll have to bring up. The districts too, especially, which brings me to Bricktown. This is my most favorite district in the city, and it is just incredible. It is a perfect example of development done right. What started out as just a bunch of abandoned factories, warehouses, pieces of Oklahoma's past has since been redeveloped, redefined, and converted into a more modern day heart of the city. When I saw it on the day I arrived, it made me fall in love with the city right off the bat. It's an incredible district and brings me to the next districts, Midtown, Uptown, and the Stockyards. Starting off with the Stockyards, it's a nice district overall. It's definitely a district that'll give you a feel of the Old West. Cowboy district, essentially, I would call it. I even saw a place where they kept all the cows, the horses. They have nice shops and eateries too, just so you know, and it's close to the Ferris wheel. This later brings me to Midtown, which comes close to the old and new Route 66. I'll talk about in a moment. This place has a lot of nice different districts, a lot of nice shops, a lot of nice scenery, just a lot of nice artwork in general. Midtown is just so amazing. It reminds me a lot of Hawthorne Boulevard here in Portland, Oregon. The next place is Uptown. It's just a very nice place in general, and it also has some nice artwork on the streets. And that all brings me to Route 66. When I was going through Route 66, I saw the bridge on the west side of Oklahoma City, and it brought me all the way going eastward to Arcadia, Oklahoma, which features the Red Barn. This place was my most favorite place on Oklahoma City's Route 66, and it was just incredible. This route alone is what brings so many tourists from Europe all the way to this place. And honestly, it just plays into this culture aspect, which makes this city so great and makes it a must-move city to those of you out there who are looking to relocate. Well, folks, that wraps up my 5 reasons to and not to move to Oklahoma City. OKC overall, in my experience and from what I've learned, is truly an incredible place. I really felt at home here, even when compared to my hometown of Portland, Oregon. I just felt more of a belonging in this city and feel like I would more rather live here than I do in my current hometown, at least until they finish building that stupid Legends Tower project. But I still rather live there. Nonetheless, like I've said previously, it won't fit everyone. Some of you are currently living in OKC watching this video and thinking, this city doesn't really suit me. I think I'd rather live in your hometown, Senfeld. Well, if that is the case, well then go ahead. However, I just thought this was an incredible city overall, and I'm glad you guys all came to watch this video. Anyways, thank you once again for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. I'll see you guys all in the next video. And of course, stay safe out there. Hey, go and explore the world for a change. See you around.